Hello, I'm Daniel Bone, Economic Development Coordinator at Mount Alexander Shire Council. And today I'd like to explain a little bit about our new pilot grant program called the Local Impact Business Grants and explain a little bit about what our assessors are going to be looking for when you submit your application. First of all, I'd like to begin by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land on which we're meeting today, the Dja Dja Wurrung and the Taungurung people, and pay my respects to their elders past, present and emerging. So this grant is about creating a local impact through business activities. We're looking for small, practical projects led by businesses. Now, community groups can apply for the grant, but they do need to partner with businesses. We're looking for projects that create a ripple effect in our local economy. I do want to draw your attention to the dates. It's a short-term grant. You have a delivery window of just 4 months, from February to June, to deliver the project. Everything must be finished and paid for by June 10th, and your report acquittal is due on June 30th. If you have a complex project that needs 6 months of planning permission, this is not the right grant for you. We're looking for projects that are ready to go. You can apply for up to $5,000, and you're welcome to spend more than that on your project, but you need to cover the gap yourself through other funding. As I said, this grant has a business focus. We've defined businesses very broadly. Be a sole trader, a farm, a creative, or a large company. We also encourage applications from groups of businesses. So that could be a formal business association, it could be a number of shops, for instance, working together, a group of farmers tackling a common problem. For a community group, you can apply, but you do need to work with local businesses. So, for example, a land care group working with farmers could form a strong application. A land care group working by itself would not be scored as highly. If you're a loose group of traders, for instance, a row of shops in Maldon, you can apply together, but you will need to have either a single applicant or be auspiced for your application. And there's a section in the application form for getting auspiced. Same for groups of individuals. So if perhaps a group of young people wanted to put an application, they could do that, but they would need to find an auspicer, perhaps somebody like a community house, to support their application. The actual organisation that we will fund will need to have an ABN number, whether that's you or the organisation that you're having auspice your application. A key measure for all Mount Alexander Shire grants is that the project and beneficiaries must be delivered within Mount Alexander Shire. Now, if your project has a broader scope, you can state that, but we'll really be measuring the element of your project which is delivered and is benefiting Mount Alexander Shire. You can see from the slide there's a few things that we can't fund, things like your normal wages, rent, utilities, insurance, etc. The grant is to fund the specific project costs, not your day-to-day costs. If you've got any questions about that, you can give us a call to discuss costs that you're thinking about including. Every grant application needs to address at least one of the 5 impact areas, and you'll find these listed on the application form. Don't feel that you need to address all of them. There's a maximum of 3, in fact, and addressing one really well can provide a stronger application than addressing more than one. Also, be aware that when we're looking at the applications, we'll be looking at how realistic they are, and so a small, well-focused project may score higher than a much broader project that's trying to tick every box. You'll also need to complete some information about each of the areas that you do choose, both during the application process and, if successful, when you come to acquit the application. Okay, let's have a look at how the application is going to be assessed. This is a competitive grant process. We've got a bit over $25,000 to give away. So if everyone for $5,000, that would be about 5 projects that we're funding. So first of all, we'll be looking at the overall merit of the project. Is it a good idea? We break that down into 3 areas. First of all, was the scale of the impact, the number of people or businesses who are going to benefit from the project. Then we look at how your application aligns with our wellbeing impact areas, and also whether the project has some long-term benefits beyond the initial delivery phase. Next, we look at the strategic alignment, and that's how well the grant is aligned with council's various plans and strategies. And last, we have a look at your ability to deliver, and that's looking at your organisation and the project itself. Okay, so let's break that down a little bit. Is this grant helping just one business, or could it create a bit of a ripple effect? So for the scale of the impact, which is 20% of the marks, we look at how many people or businesses are going to benefit. So this is where working with other businesses can be really beneficial for your application. So in the Weaker example here, we've got a shop that's applied to improve the signage. That may make the township more attractive, may increase tourism, may increase business for that shop. Stronger example is where shops are working together to make that precinct more successful. So the different businesses a benefit, but also the customers and perhaps the broader community as more people go to that part of the Shire. Now, we don't expect every application to score really strongly on each area, but when you're completing your application, just think carefully about who will benefit and how they will benefit, and spell that out so that when we're assessing the applications, we understand the full scale of impact you can see, and we are looking at that 2026 timeframe. Okay, so 20% of your assessment is going to be based on how well your project delivers benefits on the wellbeing impact areas that you select. Remember, you can choose 1, 2, or 3 wellbeing impact areas in your application. And the assessors will be looking at 2 things. First of all, is there a real need in that wellbeing impact area? So in the Weaker example, we've got somebody who wants to put in padded armchairs to make their customers more comfortable. Now, that may be appreciated by the customers, but is that an area of real need? The second is where somebody's saying that they know that there's no cafes that have got a wheelchair ramp, and they know that there's customers in the area that require wheelchair access, and so they see that as a priority to install a wheelchair ramp and a doorbell. So think about the problem you're solving, explain it to the assessor, and just give a bit of background information on how you know it's an issue and how you know your solution is going to address that to score highly in this area. Okay, so we said that 10% of the marks you're going to receive for your application are based on the long-term benefit, the legacy of your project. So make sure you spell out if you're creating any resources, toolkits, etc., that can be used beyond the life of your project after grant funding has been exhausted. So here we've got a Weaker example, delivering a workshop but no resources, and a stronger example involves creating an employer toolkit which can be used by employers long after grant funding has been spent. Just make sure that if you are creating any lasting assets, you list that in your application. Okay, so 25% of the assessment of the applications is based on how well the application aligns with the council's priorities. And the easiest way to find that is to have a look at the council plan for 2025 to 2029 and our economic development strategy. Now, both of those and council's other strategies can be found on the Mount Alexander Shire website, and there's also links in the application form. So when you complete your application, make sure you highlight that alignment, and you can see in the Weaker example, somebody's identified that there's a need for casual office space. Unless they can reference that in the plan, it's not going to score as highly as the second example, which talks about affordable childcare, which is spelt out in several council plans and strategies. Okay, so applications that really show you have the ability to deliver the project are going to score well in this section, 25% of the marks. And that's about showing that the project is realistic and that you've got the right people on board to deliver. So to show that it's realistic, having things like quotes, mentioning about any permits, insurance, other legal requirements, talking about the partners that you've got on board, and perhaps having a letter attached saying that they're going to be supportive is going to make the assessors think it's a safer bet. Another thing is spell out any finances that you're putting in or resources that you're putting in. So that just shows us that you've got skin in the game, that you're committed to seeing this success, and applications which show that are likely to score higher. Let's just have another look at the finance and time elements of the project. So as I said at the start, the grant is for up to $5,000. That's exclusive GST. Now you can apply for less. The minimum is $500. The grant can't fund your normal business operating expenses. So things like staff wages, rent, insurance, etc. can't be funded by this. But we could fund something like a speaker for a workshop. No contribution is required from you. However, it may strengthen your application to indicate you're putting in either time, money, resources, equipment, because that shows, first of all, that you're committed to the project, but it also would suggest that there might be an overall benefit. If a project has got $10,000 worth of inputs, it may well have a bigger impact than a $5,000 project. So it's worth listing any input, and you can value volunteers. So if you're using volunteers, $25 an hour, include those hours to give an overall sense of the project. You do only have 4 months to deliver the project. It's a sprint. So think about how you're going to spend the money. Think about the things that are going to delay it. Get your project shovel ready. Getting quotes, prior commitment of supporting funds, partnership agreements really going to help you strengthen your project and convince the assessors that you're ready to go. Okay, so we're coming to the end of the presentation. I'm sure you've still got some questions. Where to go for answers? So first of all, when you go to our website, you can go straight into the Smarty Grants application process, and you can download the application form and see it in print or on screen and see all the questions that are being asked. You'll see a lot of those questions are simple tick boxes. There's a few places to enter text to describe your project. Not a lot of space, so you need to be short and concise. We're not looking for long, detailed explanations. We just want to know what you've got in mind and think about what we said in this presentation about how your application will be assessed. There are also on the website guidelines for filling in the application and a Q&A. Now, if you've got further questions, do shoot them through. You can see there we've got a phone number, 54711745, or an email address, business@exon.vic.gov.au, and we will be monitoring that. And although the office will be closed for a week or so over Christmas, we will be responding to emails as quickly as possible. So if you've got questions, do shoot them through. As I said at the start, this is a competitive process. We don't know how many applications we're going to get. So think about how you can get your message across, and good luck.